Big Strong Max. Max had now been working on the Redcliff and Guinea Bridge Railway for almost 2 weeks. He had come down from Crewe to do all of David's work while he was away for major repairs, but Max was still cross at Peter for playing a trick on him, and was determined to prove to both him and Freddie that he was still as strong as an engine like he was back in America. However, this was going to get him into trouble, as you will soon find out. One day he had taken a very long and heavy train on a return journey from Redcliff to Guinea Bridge Junction and back. His wagons had been fully loaded at Guinea Bridge Junction, and he was now on his way back to Redcliff. He thought he was strong enough to handle it himself, but he started to strain as he began to climb the Beckscape flyover. The train was proving very heavy for him, and what was worse was that the wagons were playing tricks on him. They had set their brakes and were holding him back just to annoy him. "Stop holding me back, you stupid wagons! Release your brakes right this instant!" But as usual, the wagons were unwilling to comply, and set their brakes even harder. Max began straining even more. Smoke billowed from his engine, and he thought he was going to overheat and burn out. He did eventually manage to get to the top, but the wagons were not prepared to stop their tricks just yet. As you would naturally expect for them, they pushed Max right down the other side like they did with David. Max set his brakes as hard as he could, but the momentum was just all too much. The wagons bumped him over the points, and they came off the tracks with their loads spilling out everywhere. Some of the wagons and Max had received minor damage, but Max had completely wrecked the level crossing. Soon Brian brought Colin the maintenance crane so that the mess could be cleared up. Mr. Eric had also come to see the damage too. "Max, do you have any idea how this happened?" "Well, Mr. Eric, I'm afraid I may have been straining myself with the wagons, and then they pushed me down the other side of the Beckscape flyover and derailed me." I see. You must try to restrain yourself and don't wear yourself out. That's how these accidents happen, Max. Okay? Okay, sir. I will try to hold myself back from now on. There's a good engine. We will soon have you back on the tracks again, Max. Then you will be taken back to the loco yard for repairs. Max and all the wagons were soon back on the tracks again, and Brian took Max back to the loco yard for repairs along with Colin the maintenance crane. Dennis soon came to collect the wagons and finish Max's freight job for him. That night, as Max was being repaired, Peter and Freddie were talking about what had happened to Max that day. Max's accident seemed very similar to David's, didn't it, Freddie? "Oh yes, it did, Peter. Thank goodness he didn't have to go back to Crewe Works for repairs like David did." Max thought that they were being nasty to him, so he finally decided to pluck up courage and personally have a word with them. "Guys, are you talking dirt about me?" "Of course not, Max. We were talking about you because we are legitimately worried about you. Whatever gave you that idea?" "Because almost 2 weeks ago, you and Freddie were talking about that little incident I had with those wagons, and I thought you were making fun of it, so I just thought that you were making fun of the incident I had today." "Oh, Max, you silly sausage! You're our best friend. We would never make fun of you." "Yes, we talked about both incidents because we were genuinely worried about you. We don't want you having a similar accident to David, now do we?" "Oh, okay. Thank you for your concern, guys. I'm sure I'll be fine now. Tomorrow I am not going to try to prove I'm the best. I'm just going to get on with all my jobs without fuss." "That's the spirit, Max. Good night now." Good night, Peter. Good night, Freddy. Good night, Max. Then they all fell asleep. The next day, Max was going to the rolling stock yard to get his train ready. Brian was busy at the time, so he couldn't do it for him. As Max came into the yard, he spoke to the wagons. "Listen up, you lot. I'm not going to tolerate any nonsense from any of you today. I'm just going to get on with my jobs without trying to prove I'm the best. I want to make Mr. Eric proud, so no nonsense today." This gave the wagons an idea to get Max into trouble. As he shuttered them together, they started to sing. "Is that all you can haul? David's loads are longer. Is that all you can haul? David must be stronger." Max was cross. He was sure he was stronger than David. "I'll push you all into a very long train at the same time." The wagons found this hilarious. "Push us all, that's the longest. Push us all, you'll be the strongest." That's me, the world's strongest engine. And so Max shunted 5 wagons together. Then 10. Then 15. Soon he had an enormous line of 18 wagons. Just then, Alan came into the rolling stock yard with his passenger train. "What on earth is Max doing?" Brian rolled alongside him. "Max thinks he's the world's strongest engine. He just wants to make Mr. Eric proud." Max didn't know that the shunters had set the brakes on the wagons. The mischievous wagons knew this, but they encouraged Max to push anyway. "Push, push, push!" Max pushed, and he pushed, and he pushed, and he pushed. But the wagons didn't move. So Max decided to pull the wagons instead. Heave ho, you can pull but we won't go. This made Max very cross. He pulled, and he pulled, and he pulled, and he pulled. Until at last, the coupling broke, and Max shot forward so fast that he crashed off the tracks just outside the rolling stock yard. Max now felt very silly for thinking he was so strong, and all the wagons were now laughing and laughing at him. Brian, who had seen everything, quickly fetched Colin the maintenance crane so that Max could be put on the tracks again. Mr. Eric also came to see what had happened. He looked cross. So Max was quick to apologise. "I'm really sorry for what happened, sir. I know now that I should have ignored the wagons and just got on with doing my job. Are you able to forgive me?" Mr. Eric was speechless. He had never had one of his engines apologise to him that quickly. He stared deeply at Max for a second and then said, "Thank you for apologising to me so quickly, Max. That was very, good of you." Mr. Eric then walked back up the tracks towards Redcliff Station. Max was soon back on the tracks, and Brian took him back to his siding so he could be repaired again. That night, Mr. Eric came to speak to all of the engines in the loco yard. Good evening, everyone. I came down here to talk to you all tonight about Max. Some of you may or may not be aware that Max had another accident today. He did, however, apologise for it extremely quickly. This got me thinking. Max means well and probably did not mean to have that accident, so I've decided to give him another chance. A couple of hours ago, I phoned Crew Works to ask them if I could not buy Max, but have him on permanent loan from them, and they have agreed. So even though David is coming home tomorrow, Max, I think you can now call the Redcliff and Guineabridge Railway home. Oh, really, sir? You're letting me stay? Oh, thank you so much, sir. I'd love to work on this railway. I'll be the best engine you ever had. That I can guarantee to you. All of the engines whistled and honked. Max was here to stay. The next day, David came home. All the engines waited in the loco yard to greet him. Brian pulled his wagon into the yard and Colin lifted him back onto the rails. Everyone was happy, and David was the happiest of all. Welcome home, David. While you were away, an engine by the name of Max did all of your work for you, but he has done your job so well that we have decided to make him a permanent addition. That sounds very nice, sir. Is that him over there? Yep, that is indeed me. Pleased to meet you, David. Pleased to meet you, Max. Anyway, I've been really wanting to get back to work all the time I've been at Crew. Are there any jobs you want me to do, sir? Well, Max was supposed to be taking a freight train yesterday, but he had a little accident because it was so heavy, and now that train is running over a day late. I think it would be too heavy for even you, so I've had it shortened, and Dennis will be taking the wagons that were taking off it later. Do you think you could take the main part of the train to Guineabridge Junction, please? No problem, sir. I'll get on with it right away. And David headed off towards the rolling stock yard to collect his train. He backed down onto the wagons and the shutters released the brakes. Then David pulled away as easy as pie. And the engines cheered. Even Max, who was very proud to be an official member of the Redcliff and Guineabridge Railway loco fleet. Bum 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 bum, train number 16.